The race is this afternoon, by the way.
Now, do you remember that moment when David Beckham got sent off in the 1998 World Cup? You can't forget it, can you? There are many moments over the years when athletes have taken their anger out on their equipment or even out on each other.
The England Rugby Union captain thinks it should not be encouraged. Earlier this week, Lewis Moody recalled how channeling his aggression rather than venting it helped him improve his game.
Well, in a moment, we're going to speak to James Beale, who's a sports psychologist at the University of East London, and the speedway rider, Cameron Woodward. Welcome to you both. But first, before we do, we spoke to people in Cardiff about their attitudes towards sportsmen and women who lose their temper.
1, 2, 3. No, he's really wound up right now.
Tennis stars, when they're shouting at the umpire and throwing rackets about. It's kind of like how the sport accepts it, really, isn't it? So you've got to stamp it out.
I didn't move! He didn't move, and he's quite right. Children just see these things as norm when they see it so often, and then they just think it's not out of the ordinary to do it themselves.
Quite a few years ago, and when David Beckham lost it, and he got sent off. I think it was one of the World Cups.
And a red card for David Beckham.
Let's find out more about this. Now, Cameron, part of your training does involve psychological work, but how important do you think that anger and aggression plays a part in sport?
It's always going to be. It's your passion, it's your life, it's everything. So all that emotion comes spilling out sometimes.
Do you feel that? I mean, when you're actually competing, do you feel these sort of waves of aggression coming up, or do you try and stay calm? How do you handle it yourself?
Routine's been one of the better ways. You do feel it at times when you're younger. It's horrible, but I'm working hard to deal with it better, and when something goes wrong, like a crash or something, you've got to go out the next race, you've got to get over that straight away, otherwise definitely the performance is hampered, or mine is.
James, how can you focus or refocus your mind when, naturally, I think, emotionally, we're all subject to emotions, and it's easy to become angry if you're not doing as well as you feel you should be doing?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Cameron mentioned was routine. So a lot of the time we'd look at athletes and we'd try and suggest that they go through the same routine before every race in Cameron's case, or every serve in a tennis player's case, which would hopefully get them some sort of normality about what they're doing. What we might do also before the event, we might use some form of imagery. So imagine yourself in a positive way, without any anger, performing at your very best. But what might happen is that you may be the type of athlete that anger actually helps your performance. So then a little bit of anger may be a good thing.
I was going to ask about that because, say, for example, a violent, well, not violent, they'll cause loads of debate, boxing. Surely you need to be angry if you're going to thump someone with the idea of knocking them out.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, a lot of boxers would suggest that you need to be the complete opposite, and if an angry boxer comes towards you, it's very easy for them to knock that person out, because their focus changes. It narrows, and it changes onto inappropriate things rather than task-specific things.
Yeah. Cameron, I think we've got some pictures of you actually, I think, starting a race or during a race. Let's just take a look. Oh, which was you, Cameron?
I don't know if I'm in this race. Yeah, I must be on the inside.
Okay.
I'm third at the moment, yeah.
Now, you're talking about preparation and so on. Presumably now you're just absolutely concentrating on what you're doing and trying not to come off and trying to beat the other fella.
Yeah, the hardest thing was this is the last race of the night, and at the moment the Swindon boys are going to win the meeting or steal the points, so it's...
So you're tired?
Just coming around?
No, not tired.
If it's the last race of the night, you're not physically tired, so
no.
that doesn't bother you. Okay, so, but if you've got all these things in your mind, like, I've got to win, it's psychologically, how do you learn to control that? I mean, you mentioned routine, are there any other techniques you use?
The imagery, what James mentioned, is helping a lot. I'm always learning, I'm nowhere near a master of my discipline, so
it's
I'm always...
pretty impressive to me.
One off, maybe.
James, again, looking at that, I mean, we're concentrating very hard there, but Naga mentioned boxing, which is a good example, but football, the big sport, isn't it? You want 22 guys out there who are going to be aggressive, but not angry. There must be a very fine dividing line between those two things.
Yeah, I think there's a fine dividing line between those two things, and I also think that it will come down to the individual. So some players, they need to be quite calm. In fact, some players are so calm that they get accused of not trying, but I think those players are trying just as hard as a more aggressive player, but just in a different way. But I suppose what's important is that you stay within the rules of the game, the parameters of the game, and provided you can do that, if anger helps you a little bit, it's a good thing to have. But generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, once we get angry...
So you allow a little bit of, it's sort of, you know, turning the tap on just a little, that's okay?
It's okay if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, then you want to turn it off totally.
Are you someone, I know you've said you're addressing, you know, how you control yourself. Do you think you need a little bit of anger or a little bit of aggression to be the success you plan to be?
It's worked sometimes and sometimes it hasn't. So I think for a consistent, because I've got 80 odd races for the year, it's consistent wise, no, I don't think it's any good.
It's interesting, isn't it? Well, good luck in the 80 races. I'm off to the golf course later, so no throwing clubs. That's not going to work for me, no?
No.
Just focus on every shot, I imagine. Which is the sport that has the most, you've found the most aggressive people in?
Most aggressive people?
Or people who suffer with anger issues?
It seems to be tennis to me, for some reason.
Gosh, they really do wreck their
you
rackets.
see a lot of that, don't you? I mean, you had Djokovic on there before. I mean, the very, very famous incident with Rosetsky. I don't know, really.
We have to leave it anyway. James, Cameron, thanks very much.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That brings us almost to the end of breakfast.